When I first started learning about bird watching and bird photography, um, I I learned a lot from Stefano Ianero, and one of the things that I remember him saying was that you should learn to identify birds based on their calls. And I remember hearing this and just thinking, yeah, okay, whatever. I love that you are teaching us how to photograph birds and all that stuff, but to go that extra step of actually learning bird calls, I don't know. I just thought that was impossible, right? Like, I don't know. I don't have that kind of time to put into studying bird calls. It's also a skill that I didn't know that I had in me, right? I don't know that I have a skill that would transfer into something like that. And this was also a skill, learning bird calls. I don't know if that would transfer to anything else in my life. So I don't know. I just when presented with that, I just said, yeah, okay, sure, I'll skip that one. I'll try and follow your tips for other things, but yeah, I just didn't think that was possible for me to learn bird calls. Well, now that I've actually spent some time doing some bird watching and photographing birds, I can tell you that he was right. You should learn bird calls. Now, what is different, my opinion is that you don't necessarily have to go and study them. I think it can come fairly naturally just from observing the birds, you know? And I would also add that this is a skill that's probably a little bit more useful for songbirds, backyard type birds rather than, say, waterfowl. Not that I have much experience with waterfowl or shorebirds or anything like that, but for backyard birds, songbirds, yeah, I think it is very very helpful to know the bird calls, and I think it's something that comes fairly naturally with some time, right? Because I mean, for me, what I did and what I think he suggested you do, and I would suggest the same, is I would go about setting up a bird feeder. That's probably your best way of just seeing a lot of songbirds and getting a lot of opportunities to photograph songbirds. Going out to find songbirds to photograph is incredibly difficult. And I think that's how most of us who are new to this bird photography thing, or bird watching for that matter, we come into it thinking that that's how it should be done. You go out and you look for birds, but in actuality, the professionals, they set up bird feeders, and they also create sort of natural looking perches so that they can get you know candid looking shots rather than just pictures of birds at feeders, right? And they typically will be in a blind or something, and just wait for the birds to come to them. So that's kind of how the professionals do it. And I kind of did something like that. I didn't have a blind. I just shot out my window, and I had a bird feeder outside my window, and they shot through there. And when I was off during paternity leave with my first baby, I spent some time looking at birds and photographing birds. And if you just watch them and see how they behave, you'll learn their calls. And I think it's helpful because when you do go out eventually to go look for birds, one of the things that you can do is very quickly and easily and effortlessly kind of filter out what are, common birds and what are the sort of new, unusual birds, right? Because if you just go out and you're just scanning the tree line constantly for birds, you're going to be fatigued. You'd be constantly looking and just scrutinizing every branch. It's too hard. And the truth is, songbirds, they don't want to be seen. They want to be heard, And so chances are they're hiding behind some leaves, behind branches on the other side of the tree. They're very hard to see. So it's easier to just be able to hear them. Now, I am not for a second going to suggest that identifying a bird by song is somehow more satisfying than identifying a bird by sight. For sure, I would much rather see the bird and then hear the bird. And I would even much more rather be able to photograph the bird than just seeing the bird, right? So obviously, I am all about seeing the bird, but knowing their bird calls means that you can know which ones are just like everyday birds, like cardinals and starlings or a titmouse or whatnot. So you can kind of ignore those, right? And then when something different comes along, you'll be able to like zero in on where that's coming from and go looking specifically for that bird. Or if you want to if you want to take a picture of a cardinal, you listen for the cardinal and you can help you zero in on where to look for that bird. Anyway, just some thoughts.